Hey, yeah, yo.
How real is black trauma? You know, that's something that I want to touch on, because for me, whenever I deal with individuals, most of the time I feel to myself, when I deal with people from the community and I see that they're fighting against change, or they're fighting it, like it's that same post-traumatic slave disorder that you spoke about, in terms of
Constantly
where,
living in fight or flight
yeah,
mode.
they're just in fear of, disturbing the status quo, because they feel like disturbing that status quo is going to just cause us problems. So you find them acting and moving a certain way. But for me, I always tell them, man, listen, most of the people you're dealing with are sick. How do you deal with sick people? If you came across a person that had mental health that was visible and you knew it, how would you deal with him? You wouldn't expect him to move and understand certain things how you would expect the average person to. And I feel like we're not dealing with not to say that's how you have to deal with everyone in the community, but you have to understand that a lot of the default setting for some of the people in the community is that, what that historic experience and what we've been through has taken something away from them.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and it's taken something away. It's taken away like hopes and aspirations, and just having that vision to visualize something better. You know what I'm saying? Because they can't, like, when your parents, your grandparents, and everyone around you has been in a certain space, how do you then see that young person visualizing something that he's never seen happen in his family? You know what I'm saying? So a lot of the time now we're seeing people from our community, like this is for me, like, I think it's the first time I've seen so many, young black millionaires from our communities, whether it's from film, acting, sport, but there's a load of like under 25 millionaires from our communities, visually out there, and they're known. And even those young people haven't gone through a system or an education that's allowed them to understand who they are and what their position and power is. Even those who are making differences, you can still see that they're lacking in certain aspects, but they're just trying a thing because they have it with them. So for me, it's like, how real is that trauma that most black people come with? And because sometimes it's easy to see someone who, like, example, we use ourselves as an example, who's come out the other end and is doing something different, to say, like, how come them man didn't feel it? But man, understand, we've got them same traumas.
Yeah, of course.
And we go through them.
I think that's real, and I think, going back to the point again that we're all still victims. So when we know about that trauma, all of us get triggered in different types of ways. Difference is that I deal with my trauma, and the fact that I have a therapist that utilizes a particular type of African-centered intervention that is not Eurocentric. So when I have that conversation with my therapist, it's in a particular type of way that my particular needs are ultimately being met. And I remember I said to my therapist one time, we was at an event and I never told her before, and I told her she saved my life. And I think it broke her, because she was like, what do you mean? I said, yo, you saved my life. And after that, I've just been saying every black man needs a therapist because of what I went through. And I remember going through the first initial conversations with her, and I remember just being in tears because I just was vexed. And I'm saying, but that's what a lot of us are holding, because like you said, that we're dealing with daily microaggressions. We're not talking about big incidents.
Yeah.
We're talking about, I'm walking up the road and I hear the door lock. I'm jumping in a lift and everybody's holding their bag. I'm walking across the street and everybody's looking at me. I go to the petrol station and in the line like everybody else, and the man says, oh, you're right, boss, I had a good day today, and you do security. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm a man with 5 degrees and I'm feeling like I'm having to justify so everybody can hear in the petrol station that I'm not a security guard, being at work, and they're asking me, do I teach sport? And you're just sitting there thinking, these are things that you're dealing with daily. So for individuals that are not woke, or individuals that are dealing with their daily issues, they are going to be in fight or flight mode 24/7. So when you're then coming to me to talk to me about what you're talking about, it just sounds like madness. What are you talking about, bro? And then you then understand that individuals that are in those institutions, they play that role of, I'm gonna hold it down. I'm gonna talk like this. I'm gonna conform. I'm gonna assimilate because it's gonna protect me. But what are they protecting themselves from? That's the question. Because everybody's protecting themselves from the same system. Some men are gonna rebel and end up mash up, And some men are going to protect themselves, and then we're going to turn around those individuals and call them a donut, call them a coconut, and give them. But everybody's everyone's trying to protect themselves from being impacted by that same system. Because that same system is going to build you up and tell you, you know what, we don't want you no more. Look what happens to them big celebrities, where at one point they were milled off, and then it's just like, you know what, we're not really liking you no more. And then it's just like everybody hates them now. Sure. So we know that this constant system is out there to almost kind of target us. So what we're doing as our families are trying to protect our children the best that we can. So we let them know that these are the situations. And it's hard because even having these conversations, we're triggered because it's a real thing. It's real. The fact that you're going to have to tell your son that, you know what, no matter how talented you are, no matter how good you are flying to Amsterdam and doing all of these things with all of these big brands, there's people that are not going to like you just because you're black. Yeah. There's people that are going to harm you just because you're black. Yeah. There's people going to look at you and want to take your life, and you ain't done nothing wrong. You ain't caused no crime. You ain't caused no trouble. You ain't bothering nobody. You're just sitting on the bus, and there's people looking at you and they want to harm you and want to take your life just because you're black. Yeah. That's the reality. And that's the trauma. Anything else that anybody wants to talk about, for us, it's life or death in a society that is designed to annihilate us. So for me, we have to get to a point where we kind of stop having these kind of Mickey Mouse conversations and address the elephant in the room. The system of white supremacy is designed to annihilate people of color. And when we understand that, then we can then start to understand how do we navigate within this system that we're protecting ourselves, but at the same time having a little bit of peace. And then you understand then why those of old have had conversations about, you know what, Marcus Messiah Garvey said, what? Just return back to Africa. Let's just go back to our homeland. Let's galvanize, get our finances, get our intellectual property. Let's get together and let's just move back home, because we've realized that we're in a land that is designed to destroy us. And the longer that we stay, we're going to continuously be destroyed. And when you look across the Western Hemisphere and you look in education, you look in housing, you look in entertainment, you look in the criminal justice system, you look in all forms of the human activity that exists across the Western Hemisphere, despite the fact that we've got millionaires, we still have to see the onslaught of black men and black women within that society. So I think when we talk about the concept of waking up, I think when we talk about being radical, radical doesn't mean extreme. Radical means that you're thinking about a complete constructive change, where extreme is you're just fixed in a particular mindset. So when people hear the word radical, they get nervous about the term, but the two things mean two different things. To be radical is what people need, is to think that, you know what, we need a paradigm shift. This ain't working. So I like the kind of idea now that people are saying, you know what, let's go back to Ghana and let's go back to West Africa, and people are now building and saying, you know what, I realize that this is not working for my children. And it's one of those things that I think Malcolm X probably said it best, that, you know, sending your children to the education system or any institution within the Western Hemisphere is like sending your children to the kidding fields. Literally.
Bro, I wanted to ask a question, yeah? When did you realize that you needed therapy? And that's one question. And two, when you did realize you wanted therapy, how did you feel? Because obviously sometimes people that think they need therapy, they might think that, okay, is there something wrong with me? Why do I need therapy? You might question it. You might doubt yourself, question yourself, and you're not building that confidence actually. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I think for me, we have a little banter in the group that the man them talking, and we always say, yo, the man them are sick. So we see something mad that's happening in the ends, or something that's happening in the community, and we just say, yo, the man them are sick. And it was only until...
That's the best line.
It was only until I went through a situation in the institution that I worked for, where I felt that I got built up to a certain point, and it just completely broke me with some madness that they tried to come to me with. And even individuals that I was close to in that institution turned on me and didn't have my back. And at that point, I was dealing with a few things. I was dealing with the fact that my business partner died of cancer. My uncle died. I was dealing with the fact that a student of mine died. I was just dealing with so many mad things at the time. And for me, I just felt that, you know what, I need to talk to someone. But because I've been a part of mentors and individuals that are quite transparent and open with their emotions, to me, it didn't feel abnormal to step to someone, but it was because I had a link with my business partner that passed last year. She connected me with a therapist that she'd done some work with, and it was through her I said, you know what, I have to talk to her. And the maddest thing was, the first session that I had was, the first question she said to me was, Craig, can you hear the birds? I'm saying, what are you on about? So can't you hear the birds? I'm saying, hear what birds? She's saying that you're so hypersensitive that you can't even hear the birds outside. So she's put me through some mad breathing exercises. And then I'm smiling because I'm like, yeah, I can hear them. I can hear the birds. And she was like, you know what? You need to have a holiday. You need to disappear for a bit. And that's what I did. I went a week after, a couple of days after, I went into the travel agent. I said, listen, I want to go to any country with people that look like me. I just happened to be Africa. And then that was me. I was gone for like 10 days, recharge, reprogram. And I remember it saying to me, remember the birds. And that was my focus for 10 days, hearing the birds. I just wanted to hear the birds. And I know it sounds mad, but understand that if that was the wiring of my brain, the man them that are walking on the street that are going through their problems about poverty and all them things there, that must be what they're going through every single day. So when a police officer is staring at them, or a man, you got to bear in mind that all of those microaggressions that I've just talked about that I'm going through, a man's going to say, what are you stopping me for? Like, so all them videos that we see when they seem like they're going on mad, and you read the comments like, why don't you just calm down? You know, you understand that these youths are going through something that sometimes they don't understand. Because the thing with microaggressions, as I said, sometimes it's not overt. You know, a man's not calling you a black this or whatever. It can be a look. It's the way that a man treats you. You know, it's the uniform. You know what I mean? Why is it that even when you're driving and you're legit, that the police are behind you in your mirror 24/7? Because we know that language and we know that uniform has symbolic power to it and it's attached to it. Because we know what oppression looks like without it talking. We know what violence is like. We know what state violence is like without somebody talking. So when we understand the symbols and understand the kind of the unconscious things that exist within our society, then we can understand what our youths are going through every single day when they're dealing with the madness. So that's why I say the man them are sick, and that's why I've been saying, as part of what I've been saying with the man them for the last 8 months, is all the man them need therapy.
It's true. I agree with you, man. I think that's deep, man. And also because I feel like touching on this point, I think this could be one of our ending points, is that looking at us as a community, being prepared to sell ourselves the poison, whether it's through entertainment, music, drugs, whatever. What is it that or is that again also over like sensationalized in terms of, does that happen in every community, or is there a real problem with, you know, black cultured music, you know, the rap, the drill, whatever it might be? Is there a problem with the drugs that's being peddled in our community to our own people? Is there a problem with, you know, is there a problem with that? Or is that something that's...
And as well, Craig, also the issue of, you know, you see a lot of programs with black men and they're demasculinated in the programs. Or I've witnessed this over a long period of time, TV, film, whatever. I know Dave Chappelle said that you notice like a lot of the black comedians that are getting raped till they wore a dress. This is a fact, Chris Rock, all of them. And he said, I had to turn down a role and sit in my training test. I'm not putting on a dress. I don't care, I'm a man. You're not going to make me dress like a woman. And this, how much of that is an impact as well? It's taking away, like you said earlier, taking a man out of the household, but also trying to pull the masculinity out of the community. Because you see a lot of the movements, even now, you've still seen a lot of movements supporting Black Lives Matter as per se, but their main target of speech is straight black males. So where do you see that fitting in the landscape of the issue?
And I think it's a wider conversation about, and I'm going to umbrella it as exploitation. And I think it's important to understand that black culture and black death has always been profitable under the system of white supremacy. And it will always be sold, it will always be repackaged as a thing that is popular, and individuals will always be given what I call a lottery ticket in order to step up to the play. So you've got to think about it. Let's just look at it on a local level. You've got all of these kind of record labels that come to the community, that know that there's issues of violence within specific proximities in any urban environment around the UK that happens to be with black and brown people, and they know that the culture is profitable. So they're going to come to a youth in South London and say, yo, we're going to give you 300 bags, $500,000. Let's say we're going to give you $1 million because we believe you're that talented to do what you do in the studio. Now, what that youth's doing in the studio is selling Black Death, because what he's talking about is demonic, it's toxic, it's destroying the block, the estate, the community, the postcode that he comes from. But he's going to do it because he's told he's going to get $1 million. He's going to do it, he's going to get $500,000. So I'm going to go in the booth and do my best 16 to 32 bars because I know that at the end of it, I'm going to get a paycheck. Not realizing and recognizing that the whole umbrella of exploitation is that when he leaves the studio, the words that are going to be deciphered by the individuals that are receiving that are going to do two things. One, they're going to receive it and be like, you know what, this is the way forward. I'm going to be on what you're on. And then you're going to have the second group of people are going to be like, yo, you just disrespected the man then. All right, cool. We're going to slide down in the 4-door truck and then we're going to do what we're going to need to do because you've just disrespected the man. Now we've got online and social media. So Black Death also becomes profitable and that now, because now you've got the people that are beefing and then you've got the audience that are commentating and saying, yo, yeah, we like this entertainment. And everybody's got something to say. And whilst that engine is turning, the individuals that exploit the man them are sitting at their chairs because they know they're going to make this money through doing that. So we know, just like drugs now, it's the same kind of philosophy. That a man that comes to you and says, yo, listen, I can give you half of this or whatever, and you flip this and make that. Man are going to do it because they're saying that they want to get out of poverty. Man are saying it because they want to get out of their situation. They're fed up of living on the estate. They're fed up of living on the block. So I'm going to sell this in order to make something to leave the hood. But in reality, you don't ever leave the hood because you stay in the hood and you poison your own community, have beef with man, and you never leave whilst the plug remains the plug and he's on his yacht in Spain and he's making his money out somewhere else. And the music industry operates the exact same type of way. So one, we can't just blame the individuals in the system, but understanding what the system is. But we also have to take accountability too as well, because we need to also understand the trap that's been laid out for us. And we understand that whilst that trap has been made and laid out for us, we need to start having better conversations about what that ultimately looks like, because we're getting caught up. And then when we talk about, obviously, like drill now, for example, being what people say, and I call it the voice of Shaitan, is that we know that it's impacting our youths because they're jumping on it, and we know that they're putting out their narratives, their stories. That's real life. And we can't tell them that it's not real life because it's real things that are happening in London, Birmingham, Manchester, Nottingham, or wherever it is, even places like Norwich and in places like Dublin, drill music. So it's young people that are talking about their narratives, and those narratives are profitable and people are going to buy into it. And the kind of, for me, the most insidious thing about the whole drill music thing for me is that the sickest of artists are the ones that are the most violent. So you go to anywhere where the individual, the artist is like the best in drill, you'll find out that in that community is where the most violence exists. So you're almost now seeing now is like kind of this behavior now that young people are now programming themselves into this thinking that, you know what, this is the way that we have to be, which links to your point then about masculinity, because what it also does is teaches one form of masculinity. So our children now that are growing up in the community think that they have to behave in this particular way in order to survive. So if I'm going to step out on the street in order for me to protect myself, because this is what the music's telling us, that I need to have my shank, I need to carry my burner, I need to have it local, or the man them local in order for me to protect myself. So even the kids then are believing the things that they're hearing in their narratives. But what that also does when we talk about trauma and fear is that young people are then internalizing ideas about violence that may not necessarily be a reality in their scenario. So we're dealing with perceived fear and actual fear. Because if I perceive that there's going to be a threat outside right now, I might carry a knife. You may not agree with me, but I'm saying, you drop me back to my hotel, fam. I don't know when that 6-minute walk, what might not happen to me, because I heard that London's a mazza and so I'm thinking all of that in my head, and I'm super paranoid. So then I'm moving like a certain type of way now, and to you, you're thinking, how come my man's moving Buki across the road? Now you want to move to me now because you're also in fear of what I'm doing. We're both in fear. We get into a madness, and then the story is like, mad chaotic fight in the middle of London, 2 men fighting, and then we both get locked up, or one of us end up dead, and no one can even explain what the madness was all about. That's trauma. This is what we're ultimately dealing with. So when we understand the kind of the onslaught and the exploitation of black men within the music industry, within the film industry, the demasculation of men within the music industry, and also the way in which women are depicted a particular type of way in the music industry. You know, we're talking about WAP and all of these mad things that are ultimately going out in the way that women are seen in the music industry. That is sold because they know it's profitable. So again, let's look at the babies that are growing up. They're looking at this like, all right, then, so I'm going to be a trap star. I'm going to be a gunman. I'm going OT to do a madness to make my money. Or I'm going to be a model. I'm going to dress like that. Or it's all about this WAP. And that's all we're talking about. That's the reality of what our babies are being taught. So whilst that we're dealing with the systemic issues, we're also dealing with a industry that knows that they can profit off our madness. And whilst that cycle continues, it makes our job as parents much harder. So one, it's about accountability in our local community, but also understanding that that system has been designed to keep it at that way. So if we can keep selling you young men as violent individuals, then what it does is it help our media narrative of saying you men are violent, because you then can't say black men are not violent when I can show you a drill
still
music
listen
video
to the
that's
music
got
and not
7
say,
million views.
"This guy's
and
fake."
a man's talking about, yo, when he sees his up, he's going to blast him in his face, he's going to nank him, he's going to chef him, he's going to do all of this kind of madness. So see, it's you lot. So you're the people that are causing the problem. You're the people that are the most violent. But then we're not backtracking and saying, whoa. Who are these individuals that are signing these youths?
That large scale negative
why don't we talk
reinforcement.
about Charlie Slaff and why don't we talk about Tim Westwood, and why don't we have these conversations about BBC One Extra that allow the bloodshed and the toxic mentality to breathe through our airlines, and we don't ever hold them accountable?
West was that 65 years
You know,
old.
and these are the things that we don't ever talk about. But what we want to talk about, though, is the youth on the block that's 14, 15 years old that realizes that making rap music is the way forward.
So what, sorry to interject here, because obviously drill is people's reality, and people are expressing themselves. There's nothing else for them. Obviously, some people might look at it and be like, I'm not on the roads. I'm not going to prison. I'm doing music. I could possibly travel the world with it, making money, and all of that stuff. So, what do you think the solution is if they're just rapping about the reality and they're just getting paychecks for it over and over again?
I think when we talk about solutions, it's sometimes it's difficult to arrive at a particular place. And I'll be honest, I'm not a person that's going to say, like, you know, I have the kind of the magic one to know what the solution is. One of the things that I do know is that we live in a capitalist society, and I know that youths want to get money. And if the music is a means to make money, then we need to try and find new ways of them getting money in different types of ways.
100%,
So just like I would tell a youth on a block that I work with, listen, and this is how I talk to the man, them, listen, I'm not going to tell you to stop selling drugs because I don't have an alternative now. You get what I'm saying? So for me to just say, stop selling drugs without giving you an alternative, I'm just a bigger hypocrite to anybody else. But what I can do is say, you know what? You're a man that told me that you're into business. You're not come with me for a couple of days and let's see what I go on and let's see how I make this money. So like a couple of youths them that are on road, that are coming off road, I now make them jump on my mentoring thing. So I tell them straight, listen, you ain't going to make no money off mentoring. You know, what, 30, 40 pound a session ain't going to be the numbers that you're kind of used to. But this is what you're going to have to think about, bro. You're going to have to think about potentially going back to college and doing a bit of a graft and getting yourself a little bit of a qualification. So you show them an alternative route because it's about showing improving. One of the things I don't like doing is doing lip service. So to the question about music, right now, drill music is flavour of the month. So man are going to rinse it until it's rinsed and done and dry. I don't have the alternative because I'm not in an economic position to say, you know what, man can make money off doing these types of things. But what I would like to think that the conversations that we're having amongst us get man that watch these things to understand that that's the bigger agenda. So then if that's the bigger agenda, a man might think, you know what, I didn't realise that a man's raping me through the music industry doing that. All right, then cool. Let's come together and let's start our own record label. Let's come together and let's start our own studio. Let's come together and let's get our own drama studio. So then there's new avenues for man to make money and not just off the rap thing. And then it's like, all right, then cool, we've made enough money. Let's go into property and let's make money through that. So I understand that that's not going to be for everybody, but at least it's a door open for man to look at certain types of things. So I would like to think that I'm an individual that at least makes a man think. So not necessarily having all of the solutions that can say, all right, then what's the alternative? But making a man think to realise that, all right, then if you're being exploited by an individual to move something different, when I was doing certain types of work and I realized I was being exploited, and a man gave me a deeper understanding of exploitation, I was realized, you know what, I'm going to step back and I'm going to do my own thing. But when I do my own thing, I'm not going to let this happen. So I'm going to bring youths in from the block. I'm going to make them make money, but you're not going to do that. So when you're going in the track, all right, then cool, you want to talk about your reality, but you know what you're not going to do is disrespect the man that lives around the corner. So there's men that can make drill, that are talented at drill, and men that are making music that are talented, but they're not disrespecting a man across the road that's going to be prepared to kill them and wipe out their bedrooms and their family based on something a man said in the studio. That's the difference that a man can make within that, and having the power to ultimately do so. Now, obviously, music ain't really my thing, but it's just a mindset that I just know that we are in a position of holding accountability and actually saying, you know what, we don't have to do things like that. And I understand that also not every man's going to jump on it, because man is still going to do it. Just the same way man is still going to make money in selling drugs. They're going to be like, I hear what you're saying, bruv, but I'm making how much money a week in order for, if I'm trapping? Cool. But there might be one man or two man that say, you know what? All right, with the mindset that I've had there, I'm not going to do that no more. I'm going to flip that and use that mindset and do it in business. And if you look at what men are doing, and I think that whilst we're having these conversations about negativity, I always like to keep reminding us that there are men that have that mindset now, that are leaving that type of world and saying, you know what, all right, cool, I can go to somewhere like Spain and open up different types of things that can actually make the same type of money that I was making through that, but better, and actually I'm a boss of myself. I can actually employ people. So with my organization, I say that, you know what, I employ black people. I employ black young people from the community that would have never had the opportunity to do things in other organizations. That's my change. So that's my little solution. It may not help 100 people, but I've changed 3 people's life in the space of 8 months. So that's my bit. And if you can see that, all right, then cool. I've come from the block just like them, and got to a place where I'm almost a doctor in terms of my thing, in terms of my studying, and come from the same road, seeing the same things, then they can do it too. And that maybe is the solution. The solution is not the talking, maybe. The solution is maybe the action. And if we can impart an action as opposed to lip service, then that's all it is. So when youths are around me that talk about paper, cool, let's talk about paper. You can get a rollie, you can get AP, but you're not going to do it this way. Because the man them that I know have all of those things, but guess what? They've got legitimate businesses, cleaning businesses, drawings that you don't even think that man can get there. Man are selling oils, and man are doing things and just doing so many different types of things and getting it in. It's inspiration to certain youths, but I think that because we don't capture it and we don't function in the way in which the advertisers function, that's the reason why we're not bringing the youths in, because we're doing some Mickey Mouse thing in terms of what we're recording. What we need to do is the same way of how we advertise the madness, advertise the positivity. Because guess what? It was through the way that advertisement of positivity and knowledge of self was what made me want to go to university and made me want to study. So if that can do that to me, watching old videos on YouTube, then that can do that in the present context of youths that are now doing so many different types of things now.
100%, I agree, man. I think we need to get you back in there for another session, but there's so many things we can touch on. Where can the people find you? Street Academics UK?
So Instagram, Street Academics UK, or my website, Solve, and the Centre of Youth Violence and Conflict. You type my name, Craig Pinkney, you'll find everything.
We'll get everything in the description on the YouTube video as well.
Yeah, man.
I think it's important that we continue these conversations.
100%.
And also ask difficult questions, like the brother just asked, that we have those kind of ideas that someone else can watch this and continue the conversation. And if there's an individual...
Before we wrap up, I want to ask you this question. I'm waiting for you to come. So I've got 4 mixed race children,
Yes.
They don't look mixed race at all. So the conversations I always try to find myself having with them is, you will feel comfortable until they see who your mum is. And it's like, how do I balance that education and keep them grounded on knowing this is who you are, it's always who you are, this is always going to be your ancestry, it's always going to be your history, and not let them get bogged down in the perceived privilege that they have and then get that big reality check somewhere down the line that just sends them down a slope. Do you get what I'm saying?
I think give them that reality check. I like to go by Dr. Malana's concept of what black is, because people, when they talk about the concept of black, they just think, it's just because you colour of your skin. But Dr. Malana Karenga said black is colour consciousness and content. And what he talked about is this idea about is that you don't necessarily, you can look black but not necessarily be conscious.
Yeah.
So that may not necessarily define you as what it is to be a black person. So an individual may have melanin in them and be classified as black in a racialized social
Yeah,
structure, but the consciousness is important. So it's giving them that knowledge of self. You know, traveling I think is brilliant. I think for me, you know, being able to and I thank the Most High for allowing me to be able to do that. That I can travel and, like, for example, my son had a science project last year about Egypt. So, all right, we're flying to Egypt. So I know that when I'm working and I'm doing my graft and I grind, anything that my son talks about, we're doing it. I just was saying to Musa earlier that he was talking about Mexico earlier, so we're going to go see the Olmec Empire, the ancient West African civilization, before the Mayans, before the Aztecs, that we're oftentimes given in school. And we're going to see those things so you can physically see. So consciousness is important. So it's not just about them holding that, okay, I look black or whatever. It's also about the consciousness and that reality that they live within a racialized social structure, that there's going to be times within history on their lives that people are going to judge them, black and white, that are going to have something to say. But in a racialized social structure, the reality is that they're black because white people are going to call them that they're black. It's not, these white people are not going to make no distinction with what they are.
Exactly,
It's only the victims,
Yeah,
the sick people, those with the poisoned minds are going to be like, yeah, but you're not black. Yeah, but you look like this. Yeah, but you know, we have it. It's stuff I do in schools all the time. I work with Somali youth and yeah, but they're not black. Like, what are you talking about? Where's Somalia? Africa. Yeah. But ain't that to do with what are you talking about? so we know that our old people are confused. So the reality is knowledge of self, you know, color, consciousness, content, 100%. And that's important.
100%, man.
Just
All right, guys, subscribe, share. United Goals. We're gonna put some details in the description where you can find Craig, you can find his work. If we can have anything else that we can add in the descriptions regarding the conversations, because some people might want to get educated and see how they can make a change. We're going to see if we can add that in there, and also just carry on the conversation within the comments. And if we can get involved, we're going to get involved, man. Until the next episode, we're out.